She had a group of 13 parents and kids, and when she gets to this point in the presentation, the parents start pulling out the paperwork and start signing up because they say, free tuition, free use of laptops and textbooks, you're covering that cost for me, you know, where can I sign up? This is really appealing, and I think it's a good indicator of what parents are feeling out there. Sometimes as parents, you know, we get involved in a lot of different things. We don't feel like we have the time or even the knowledge sometimes to help our kids make that transition into college, and what can we do to help that? And I think that when you see a reaction like that, it's a pretty good gauge of parents are eagerly looking for that help to help their kids go on and have that better career. And it's really a good feeling when you start to see that connection. So we talked about these other things that the kids actually does between the internship, the connections with employers. For employers themselves, the PTECH package is really just what we said before, the educated, skilled, trained workforce. From an economic development point of view, which is what I've been doing for a number of years here, this is vitally important. The Idaho State Department of Commerce, about 6 months ago, worked with one of the leading site selectors in the company called Deloitte. So they're from the old Deloitte & Touche, the accounting firm, but they do other consulting. So they do site selector work, and that is, if I'm IBM, and I want to open a new plant someplace, I'd work with a firm like Deloitte to say, where's the best deal? You know, where does it make the most sense for me to locate a new plant, manufacturing, consulting, whatever it is? And Deloitte told the Department of Commerce that the most important thing today, the most important factor, it's not necessarily as much a tax break or incentive or low tax rate or access to a rail line or interstate or some of these other physical drivers, it's workforce. Companies will make the decision to stay where they're at as they grow or relocate based on where can they get the talented workforce that's going to allow them to grow. And so, you know, that helps us with PTECH because it shows that we're on the right track. If we really want to make sure that our kids can have a good job, paying job in Idaho, this is vitally important that we're able to do this. So when we're out talking businesses, we have two categories. We have PTECH supporter and PTECH business partners. Our partners would actually be companies that would hire the degrees that I showed a couple of slides ago. That they would have jobs that would be connected to those educational attainment degrees and certificates. PTECH supporters are companies that don't necessarily hire that specific degree or that education level, but they're supportive of the program. They think it's great. They'd like to be involved, and some of their involvement can even be, you know, mentoring. HP in Boise. Next week we're going to have do a technology field trip, and we'll go to HP in Boise. HP in Boise, you know, for the Treasure Valley, it's the home of the laser jet, and it's been a big employer over the years. They don't do manufacturing there anymore. They've had to push that overseas, but they still do all the engineering and designs of all the, you know, current and future HP printing products. So they hire people that have four-year engineering degrees and mainly even masters. But they're excited to participate in this program and do the field trip and host it because they want to show kids, you know, what a job in technology looks like. You know, you could be working in a place like this. You may not get out of PTECH and get a job at HP, but you know, here's an example of a world-known, you know, global technology company that's based in Idaho. So let's take a look at it, just get a feel for what's going on in that industry. So our partnerships, talk about Modern General Health, Idaho Department of Commerce, Idaho Business for Education. This is a group of business leaders in the state that's come together to focus on raising that education level to 60%. They've got really great companies that they work with, and it's some of the same companies that we're working with. Idaho Technology Council would be a similar kind of group, and they're focused on technology, so their board's made up of technology companies. Cisco, we talked about. St. Al's is one of the big hospitals in Boise. Ednetics is down in Post Falls. Ednetics is a really amazing technology company. They do remote hosting and networking in schools, and now they're starting to branch out into government agencies. But with a really, started with a small dedicated staff, they do amazing things for schools. So they really are about the cloud. You know, we all see the commercials about the cloud. For a school district, things like a phone system, you know, where you have a big box that connects to it, or to host all of your network, you know, physically have the computer hard drives in your office versus hosting them in the cloud. Ednetics is one of the leaders in this technology field, and they're continuing to grow. So they're going to be part of our technology field trip next Tuesday here in North Idaho. So we'll have kids coming from Clark Fork and Sandpoint that are going down to Ednetics to tour. Empire Airlines we talked about before, they're in Hayden Lake, or out at Hayden at the airport, but these are just a few of them, and we've got a lot more in process that we've talked to that we're following up with now. So our team is, me, Alan Millar is our executive director. Alan was the principal for Stamford Charter School before, but Alan's been involved in many statewide efforts in the charter school network statewide, and also been on the governor's educational task forces, the last two that the governor had, to look at specific education initiatives. Deb Pence is down in Post Falls, and she was the principal at Idaho Distance Education Academy we talked about before. Molly Huckabee, that's here, worked at the charter school. Molly actually goes out to the high schools, works with parents and kids and facilitators. And then Ginger Winkler came from NIC, so she's our college liaison. Her job is to work with colleges. Today, after January, we'll have 8 schools and about 150 students that we're starting off with. In this first semester, we had actually 58 students that we started with. So the schools that we're in now, or will be in January, include Clark Fork, Forestburg Charter School, Idaho Distance Education Academy we talked about, Kellogg, and then next semester we'll have Wallace down in the Silver Valley. Melba and Cuna are 2 schools that are kind of south of Meridian, down in southwest Idaho. And Sandpoint High School. Molly was there last night. She signed 13 kids up. They're really excited about the program. And I'll say, a great thing about our local high school is, and Clark Fork too, that's in our district. Molly said this morning, she goes, it was great at Sandpoint because they'd already been, this awareness that we're talking about. The kids that were signing up at Sandpoint have already decided, even before their interaction with PTECH, what they want to do. And they're already aligned with these 2-year degrees that they've got. The kids are doing their research. They know what they want. And so they see this as a great opportunity to help them bridge some of those funding gaps and be able to get into it. So I think it was a great feedback for Sandpoint High School. So that is my last slide. This is kind of our pitch that I go around the state and give to businesses and everybody else. I don't know if maybe Kate, there would be some questions that I'd be happy to answer, but I gotta say for myself, me personally, I was born in Idaho, I was educated in Idaho, in public schools, and I went to a public college in Idaho too. And to be a part of what we're trying to do for Idaho kids, it really means a lot for me. Even our traditional industries, I'll just say really quickly, I graduated from Plummer High School a long time ago, and I could have literally walked down the hill, not even having to have a high school degree, and got a job at the sawmill and been able to work my way up over time that I could have earned enough money to support a family, starting back then. I don't have any grandkids, but people my age do, and so there's at least 2 generations, if not 4 or 5 in our state, that from a family's perspective haven't ever had to bridge this gap and understand there are still family supportive, income level jobs in Idaho, but today it takes more education past high school to get those jobs. And a great example of that in the sawmill industry is North Idaho College is in the process of launching a community college degree and certificate program specifically for sawmill jobs. Because technology's changed in the mill, you don't have that, start with a manual labor job and work your way up over time into the more skilled positions. Automation's changed that, so they've identified that they need this educational pathway to get kids out of high school, get them the degree and certificate so they can go and do things that are these traditional industries like saw filing or log scaling or being a millwright, which today being a millwright is a lot of still the old stuff, which is manual and mechanical labor and welding and fabricating, but it's also computers. It's also running programmable logic controllers, in a sawmill. So I just want to leave you with that message. I think it's a great time for our community in Sandpoint because PTECH's based out of here. We've got both of our local high schools in the district signed up on the program. We have connections and trying to solidify and work on solidifying those with our local employers so that we can show kids that pathway that allow them to stay in the hometown that we've chosen to live in, and hopefully our kids can choose to live here too. So thanks for your time.
Any questions?